Have you ever found it strange? You eat well, drink milk, take calcium supplements, and exercise gently every day, yet your legs somehow grow weaker. You feel tired after grocery shopping. A few steps up the stairs leave you breathless. After sitting for a long time and standing up, your calves feel numb, sometimes even with a pins and needles sensation. Worse, some people experience nighttime leg cramps, so painful they have to get up and massage them, unable to fall back asleep. Even stranger, this happens even when your bones are still strong and your muscles aren't noticeably atrophied. So, what exactly is happening to your legs? Some people visit the doctor, and the results show it's not due to joint issues nor calcium deficiency, but due to blood. Blood no longer flows smoothly to your legs. It seems like a minor issue, but it turns out to be a sign of a silent disease that affects over 1 in 5 people over 60 in the US, according to the CDC. And what surprises many people the most, the cause isn't far-fetched. It doesn't come from medication, it doesn't come from age, but from a very familiar food item on your breakfast table, sandwich, or salad every day. Can you guess what it is? A food that is both fragrant and rich, seemingly healthy because it's rich in calcium and protein, but if used incorrectly, it can silently narrow the blood vessels leading to your legs, making blood circulation difficult, causing your legs to become progressively weaker, prone to pain and swelling. And even scarier, it can not only cause numbness or leg fatigue, but also increase the risk of leg ulcers, gangrene, or loss of sensation, especially in older adults with pre-existing high blood pressure or diabetes. What is the name of that food? You might have already guessed. It's cheese, but not all types are harmful. The thing is, there are many types of cheese that are very good, low in fat, low in salt, aid calcium absorption, and even good for bones and digestion. But 5 particularly common types of cheese are the most suspicious, hidden culprits, silently damaging blood vessel walls and accelerating the blockage of blood flow to the legs. Next, we'll begin our journey to discover each type, from the most familiar names like cheddar to seemingly fancy ones like blue cheese, to know which ones to keep and which to avoid if you want to protect your legs as you enter your 60s. Are you ready? And the first name, also the most familiar in American kitchens, is cheddar cheese. Many older adults in the US regularly add a slice of cheddar cheese to their morning toast or sprinkle a thin layer on their baked pasta dish in the evening without a second thought. Cheddar seems like a familiar companion in most kitchens, rich, versatile, and readily available in every supermarket. But it's precisely because of this familiarity that many have unintentionally overlooked its silent effects on leg health, where tiny blood vessels silently bear the entire body's weight every day. Try to imagine the arterial system in your legs as a sophisticated network of water pipes. When these pipes are soft and flexible, blood and oxygen flow smoothly to every muscle fiber in your calves and feet. But when the lining inside the vessel walls, the endothelium, begins to be damaged, blood no longer flows smoothly. Instead, it starts to get stuck at inflammatory spots, fatty deposits, and gradually forms atherosclerotic plaques, the main culprit causing blockages in leg blood vessels, also known as Peripheral Artery Disease, PAD. And cheddar cheese, with its high content of saturated fatty acids, SFA, and sodium, is one of the factors contributing to this process. In every ounce, equivalent to about a thin slice of cheddar, there are approximately 6 grams of SFA. When this type of fat enters the body, the liver processes it and produces LDL cholesterol, also known as bad cholesterol. LDL then easily oxidizes and adheres along the vessel walls, much like long-term residue accumulating in pipes, making blood flow difficult. Not stopping there, saturated fat also stimulates an inflammatory response, increasing inflammatory mediators like IL-6 and TNF, causing vessel walls to lose their inherent elasticity. The sodium in cheddar, about 190 milligrams per ounce, is another silent factor. For those who eat a lot of this cheese, the total sodium intake can easily exceed 2,300 milligrams per day, the limit that the World Health Organization recommends not to exceed. When sodium is high, the pressure inside the blood vessels increases, and that means the endothelial lining is overstretched and more easily damaged. That's when molecules like VCAM1 and ICAM1 are activated. These are adhesion molecules that help inflammatory cells anchor to the vessel walls and cause further damage. If you're thinking, are these effects really that serious? Studies have the answer. The WHO's 2023 review clearly states that people consuming saturated fat at a level of 10% of daily energy intake have a significantly higher risk of peripheral atherosclerosis. Similarly, the American Heart Association, AHA, 2017 recommendations also emphasize to prevent atherosclerosis, especially in older adults, SFA intake should be kept below 6% of daily energy intake, a level that a single serving of cheddar cheese almost breaks. So, is there a way to still enjoy cheddar more safely? The answer is yes, but with caution. First, reduce your serving size to a maximum of 1 ounce per serving, just a thin slice. Don't eat it at the same time as other SFA-rich foods like deli meats, butter, or fried foods, as the combined effect can push LDL cholesterol to an uncontrollable level. If you want to add cheddar to a dish, combine it with green vegetables like spinach or apple slices, as the fiber and antioxidants in fruits and vegetables can help reduce fat absorption and protect the vascular endothelial lining. For those who are managing blood pressure or cholesterol, regular monitoring of LDL levels, especially if they exceed 100 mmol/dl, is mandatory. In these cases, cheddar should be limited to less than 0.5 ounces per serving, just a small piece to taste rather than eat. Also, if you are lactose intolerant, don't worry too much. Cheddar is usually aged longer and contains less lactose than fresh milk. However, if you still experience discomfort after eating it, consider switching to lactose-free cheeses or trying goat cheese, which is lower in lactose and generally easier to digest. One last but equally important point: avoid combining cheddar with pre-packaged foods like salty snacks or sausages, because it's not just cheddar, but the accompanying sodium army that will cause your total salt intake to exceed the allowed limit in a single meal. So are you eating cheddar every day? And do you think a small piece of cheese could affect your legs that much? Don't worry too much. What matters isn't the type of cheese you choose, but how you eat it and the quantity you consume. And if you're ready to continue, the second type of cheese that many people are unintentionally using incorrectly and is even more dangerous than cheddar will make you reconsider your eating habits more seriously. Can you guess what it is? If cheddar is a familiar but tempting friend, then the next cheese can be likened to an imposter in the kitchen, a product that appears everywhere, from convenient sandwich slices to the melted topping on fast food hamburgers. That is processed American cheese, often labeled simply as cheese, but actually a mixture of more industrial ingredients than fresh milk. At first glance, a golden, smooth slice of this cheese seems harmless, even suspiciously delicious and rich. But hidden beneath that appearance is a silent but dangerous mechanism that many leading cardiologists recommend older adults completely eliminate from their diet. Why is that? First, trans fat is the biggest danger. Although many brands today claim no trans fat, in reality, FDA regulations still allow products to be labeled 0G trans fat if the amount is less than 0.5 g per serving. This means that if you eat 2-3 slices per day, you can accumulate enough harmful trans fat without even realizing it. And what are the consequences? Trans fat not only sharply increases LDL, bad cholesterol, but also decreases HDL, good cholesterol, creating a perfect environment for LDL to oxidize, adhere to blood vessel walls, and activate endothelial inflammation more strongly than even SFA. Second is the extremely high sodium content. Each thin slice, about 21 g, can contain 250 to 300 milligrams of sodium. With 3 slices of cheese used in an American-style breakfast, egg sandwich, sausage, and cheese, you've consumed nearly 900 milligrams of sodium, almost half of the WHO's maximum recommended daily limit. And just like cheddar, high sodium causes increased vascular pressure, damage to the endothelial lining, and triggers a series of inflammatory reactions, including the activation of VCAM1 and ICAM1, the anchors for inflammatory cells to adhere to the leg vessel walls. So, what evidence clearly demonstrates the harmful effects of this type of cheese? The AHA, American Heart Association, special report in 2017 affirmed that trans fat is one of the strongest risk factors leading to cardiovascular disease and peripheral artery disease, PAD. Meanwhile, the AHA's 2023 dairy guidelines also clearly state processed cheeses, especially American style, should be completely avoided in older adults due to the high risk of causing endothelial inflammation, increased LDL, and high blood pressure. The solution? There's no right way to eat this type of cheese. The best option is to completely eliminate it from your daily diet. If you truly need a creamy, savory flavor for your sandwich, you can substitute it with natural fresh cheese that doesn't contain trans fat and is low in sodium, such as 1% fat ricotta, about 80 to 120 milligrams sodium ounce, or low-fat cottage cheese. Don't forget to check the ingredient label carefully. Stay away from products with the words partially hydrogenated oil, as this is a telltale sign of hidden trans fat. For those being treated for hypertension or taking statins to control cholesterol, eating this type of cheese, even just one slice a day, can counteract treatment and even cause LDL to plateau or slightly increase despite taking medication. And if you experience swollen legs or tingling toes when walking, it's very likely that microvascular changes are silently occurring. So the question is, have you ever thought that just one slice of cheese on your toast could be that harmful? If this startled you, then continue with the next section, because the third type of cheese, though considered a symbol of luxury in cuisine by many, has an even higher salt and fat content than both cheddar and American cheese. Don't look away, you'll soon know why Parmesan can make your legs pay such a high price. If cheddar is a familiar friend and American cheese is a dangerous imposter, then Parmesan, or Parmigiano Reggiano, is a sophisticated, luxurious gentleman, but silently sows risks with every light sprinkle on a plate of Italian pasta or a bowl of vegetable soup. With its rich flavor, characteristic saltiness, and subtly deep fattiness, Parmesan has long been a treasure in the kitchens of many older adults who love traditional European cuisine. But just like beautiful yet sharp antique items, this type of cheese needs to be used with extreme caution, especially when it comes to the health of your legs and circulatory system after age 60. First, what few people notice is just 1 ounce of Parmesan, equivalent to 2 tablespoons grated, already contains 330 milligrams of sodium, nearly 15% of the recommended daily sodium intake. And who only sprinkles it once? Many older adults have a habit of adding a little more for richer flavor, but just repeating this 2-3 times a day can bring the total sodium intake from Parmesan to nearly 1,000 milliliters just from this seemingly harmless topping. So what happens when sodium exceeds the limit? In older adults, the vascular endothelium, the inner lining of the arterial wall, has already begun to thin and become less elastic. Consuming too much sodium increases blood volume, which then puts pressure on the blood vessels, especially the small arteries in the legs. This pressure causes cracks in the endothelial lining, leading to the appearance of adhesion proteins like VCAM1 and ICAM1, which act as glue traps for inflammatory cells to adhere to, and thus plaque begins to form, slowly but surely, on the vessel walls in the calves, ankles, and even the feet. Not stopping there, Parmesan is also a cheese with a very high content of saturated fatty acids, SFA, with about 7 g of fat lush ounce, mostly SFA. Combined with sodium, these two factors create a double effect, both sharply increasing LDL cholesterol in the blood and accelerating the process of inflammation and atherosclerosis. If LDL is oxidized, it will be even more prone to depositing on damaged vessel walls due to sodium, like scratches on metal quickly rusting if left in the rain. These are not mere speculations. According to WHO reviews, sodium levels above 300 milligrams ounce, especially in hard cheeses like Parmesan, are strongly linked to an increased risk of hypertension and the progression of peripheral artery disease, PAD. The AHA report also emphasizes that older adults who consume large amounts of hard cheeses rich in sodium and SFA have twice the risk of leg artery blockages, especially if they also have underlying conditions like dyslipidemia or hypertension. So how can you still enjoy this characteristic savory, fatty taste without sacrificing vascular health? The answer is to control portion sizes and choose consumption times wisely. Nutritionists recommend not consuming more than zero point 0.5 ounces of Parmesan, about 14 g, per serving, and not exceeding 2 to 3 times per week. If you still want a touch of Italian flavor in your dish, you can substitute with fresh mozzarella or cottage cheese, which are lower in sodium and contain less saturated fat. To enhance flavor, sprinkle a little herb like basil, oregano, or black pepper to stimulate your taste buds without needing excessive amounts of salt from Parmesan. Additionally, combining foods rich in potassium like sweet potatoes, spinach, bananas, or avocados in the same meal will help balance sodium levels and aid the body in excreting salt through the kidneys. A glass of warm water after a meal also helps protect the kidneys and circulatory system. However, it must be said frankly, Parmesan is not for everyone. If you have severe high blood pressure, early stage kidney failure, or symptoms of leg swelling and cold toes, completely eliminating Parmesan from your diet is a wise decision. Because even a light sprinkle today, if prolonged every week, can lead to not being able to walk 100 steps in the future. And once you've passed 60, every step is precious. Don't let a type of cheese, no matter how expensive and refined, weaken the blood vessels that are trying to nourish your legs every day. So what about blue cheese? A type of cheese that can be called a living experiment of fermentation with a distinctive aroma and intense richness. Is it safer, or is it even more dangerous than cheddar and Parmesan combined? The answer will surprise you. Let's find out in the next section. If cheddar is a companion and Parmesan is a classic gentleman, then blue cheese is like a rebellious artist. With its strong flavor, distinctive smell, and mottled blue veins that look like they were painted by microorganisms, this cheese often makes people either fall deeply in love or avoid it forever. But whether loved or hated, for older adults, especially those with vascular problems, blue cheese is not just a food, it can be a real threat. First, it's important to understand that blue cheese belongs to the group of cheeses fermented with penicillium mold. This process not only creates beautiful blue veins and a pungent aroma, but also produces some bioactive peptides. While these may sound nutritionally appealing, in reality, many peptides in blue cheese have strong pro-inflammatory properties. They can stimulate the body to increase the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha, which can damage the endothelium of blood vessels, especially in the legs, leading to chronic inflammation and the formation of atherosclerotic plaques. Furthermore, blue cheese is alarmingly high in saturated fatty acids, SFAs. 1 ounce, about 28 g, can contain 8.1 g of fat, with nearly 5.3 genes being SFAs. With numbers like these, just 2 slices of bread with blue cheese can bring you close to or even exceed the recommended daily intake of saturated fat, especially for people over 60, when bad cholesterol, LDL levels, often tend to increase with age. The dual harm doesn't stop there. Each ounce of blue cheese also contains 365 to 400 milligrams of sodium, equivalent to 17% of the daily recommended value. As analyzed in previous sections, sodium is the door opener for a chain reaction. Increased blood pressure, endothelial damage, inflammatory cell adhesion, plaque formation, narrowing of leg blood vessels. With blue cheese, the problem lies in the convergence of 3 factors: SFAs, sodium, and inflammatory peptides, simultaneously within a small piece of cheese. Reports from the WHO and recommendations from the AHA consistently agree that fermented cheeses, high in sodium and saturated fat like blue cheese, are clearly linked to the progression of peripheral artery disease, PAD. In fact, research groups specifically note that in older adults with underlying inflammatory conditions, such as arthritis, type 2 diabetes, regular consumption of blue cheese can increase the risk of vascular inflammation flare-ups, leading to leg muscle pain, difficulty walking, and reduced blood circulation. So if blue cheese is that dangerous, is there a way to still enjoy it without compromising your health? The answer is yes, but to a very limited extent. Many experts recommend consuming a maximum of 0.5 ounces, about 14 g, per serving, no more than 1 to 2 times per month. Yes, that's per month, not per week. If you still want to keep a bit of blue cheese's culinary personality and malice in your meals, you can smartly combine it with foods rich in good fats, MUFAs and PUFAs, like avocados, extra virgin olive oil, or walnuts. These unsaturated fats can partly neutralize inflammatory reactions and slow down the absorption of bad LDL cholesterol. Additionally, it's advisable to eat blue cheese with raw vegetables and high-fiber fruits to help eliminate some cholesterol through the intestines. However, in many cases, completely avoiding blue cheese is still the safer choice, especially if you are taking diuretics, blood pressure medication, or have kidney problems. The amount of sodium and inflammatory peptides in this cheese can cause electrolyte imbalances and worsen chronic inflammation. If you're looking for a safer but still distinctive option, fresh feta or low-fat ricotta cheese are smart choices. They still retain a soft texture and delicate flavor, but have much lower sodium and SFA content. Like an improvisational jazz piece, blue cheese can captivate connoisseurs, but it also harbors dangerous low notes for the cardiovascular system and legs if consumed at the wrong time and in excessive amounts. At age 60 and above, every dietary decision needs to be as alert as a conductor, enjoying while controlling so that the body's orchestra doesn't miss a beat. And if blue cheese is the rebellious artist, then Gouda, the last cheese we're about to explore, is the European aristocrat with a soft exterior but hiding many surprises. Is Gouda truly a safer choice, or does its gentleness conceal another risk? We'll find out right now. There's something few people suspect. A seemingly innocent slice of Gouda cheese can gradually narrow blood vessels in the legs, slow down blood flow, and make legs, already weakened with age, feel heavy, numb, and even icy cold every early morning. But why has a cheese dubbed easy to eat, easy to pair, like Gouda, become the final name on today's warning list? The answer lies in three factors: saturated fatty acids, SFAs, sodium and endothelial inflammatory peptides, a trio previously mentioned with blue cheese, but in Gouda they are hidden beneath a much softer, fragrant, and milder exterior. 1 ounce, 28 g of Gouda contains an average of about 7.8 g's of fat, of which 5 g are SFAs. This is a high level, comparable to the hardest cheeses like Parmesan or blue cheese. After digestion, these saturated fats enter the bloodstream as free fatty acids and LDL lipoproteins. LDL, if present in too high amounts in the blood, is easily oxidized, depositing on the endothelial lining of blood vessels and forming atherosclerotic plaques. For older adults, especially those over 60, arteries in the legs like the femoral artery and popliteal artery are often the most common sites for plaque formation. And that is the starting point for peripheral artery disease, PAD, a culprit that causes leg pain when walking, a feeling like cramps, or a heaviness like wearing weights every time you go upstairs. In addition to fat, Gouda also contains an average of 232 milligallons of sodium per ounce, a seemingly insignificant number but a crucial link. When sodium accumulates in the blood, it increases osmotic pressure, drawing water into the bloodstream, which increases blood volume, thereby causing high blood pressure. Prolonged high blood pressure damages the endothelial cell layer, activating adhesion molecules like VCAM1, ICAM1, which act as bridges for inflammatory cells to adhere and narrow blood vessels. And then, the final factor, and the one few people pay attention to, Gouda is also a long-aged fermented cheese, and during that fermentation process, some endothelial inflammatory peptides are produced, activating potential inflammatory responses. Especially with aged Gouda, meaning cheese aged for over 12 months, the level of pro-inflammatory peptides can be significantly higher, increasing the expression of cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-A, causing chronic damage to small blood vessels in the legs. Research on over 5,000 older adults showed that a diet rich in saturated fat from aged cheese, especially Gouda, increased the risk of PAD by up to 1.8 times. Additionally, AHA-ACC clearly indicates that replacing cheeses high in SFAs like Gouda with low-fat cheese can help reduce LDL by 5% 7% in just 4-8 weeks. What's the solution for those who still love this smooth, rich flavor? It's simple. Choose young Gouda, the type aged for only 2 to 3 months, as this variety has 10% to 15% less saturated fat compared to aged Gouda. Furthermore, you should limit your serving size to 0.5 ounces, 14 g per consumption, and not consume it more than twice a week. When consuming it, combine it with green vegetables rich in lutein and vitamin C, such as kale, spinach, or red bell peppers, to help protect the endothelium and partially neutralize oxidative reactions. And an important reminder, individuals with metabolic syndrome, arthritis, dyslipidemia, or diabetes, i.e., groups at high risk for vascular problems, should completely avoid aged Gouda. With its high SFA and inflammatory peptide content, this cheese can subtly disrupt vascular balance and accelerate the progression of PAD. Finally, if you are lactose intolerant, Gouda, though lower in lactose than milk, can still cause discomfort. In this case, prioritize fresh mozzarella or goat cheese, which are lighter on the stomach and safer for cardiovascular health. After an unexpectedly revealing journey through 5 familiar cheeses, from a lightly crisp slice of cheddar, a convenient piece of American cheese, a sprinkle of Parmesan on pasta, to the intense flavor of blue cheese or the gentle richness of Gouda, many people have probably started looking at their refrigerator with a different perspective. Because not all cheeses are friendly to blood vessels, especially when your legs have crossed the 60-year mark. So how exactly do these concerning cheeses affect leg circulation? Firstly, saturated fatty acids, SFAs, abundant in hard cheeses, are the silent culprits that elevate LDL cholesterol levels. When LDL is high, it's highly susceptible to oxidation and deposition in the artery walls, thus forming atherosclerotic plaques, a typical characteristic of peripheral artery disease, PAD. Notably, leg arteries are the first to bear the brunt of this. Secondly, the high sodium content in many cheeses, even from just a few small slices, is enough to increase blood pressure, damage the endothelial lining of blood vessels, activate adhesion molecules like VCAM1 and ICAM1, which then attract inflammatory cells to adhere to the vessel walls and create conditions for rapid plaque development. Thirdly, some long-aged fermented cheeses like blue cheese or Gouda also produce endothelial inflammatory peptides, which increase the expression of pro-inflammatory cytokines, IL-6, TNFR. If you have underlying conditions like diabetes, arthritis, or metabolic syndrome, these peptides can promote chronic inflammation in the body. Evidence from major organizations like the AHA, WHO, and large-scale studies all point to a link between diets high in SFAs, trans fats, and sodium, and an increased risk of PAD, especially in older adults. But in those same studies, a positive direction emerges, replacing high-fat cheeses with low-fat cheeses, combined with a diet rich in fiber, green vegetables, nuts, and vegetable oils, can reverse the risk. So if you love cheese, don't worry too much. The problem isn't about eating or not eating, but rather how much, what kind, and what you eat it with. Because in the world of nutrition, as in life, it's our choices that determine the long-term outcome. Perhaps no one would think that a piece of cheese could make such a big difference to leg health. But when you put it on the table every day, repeatedly over many years, that small thing silently has the power to either protect your blood vessels or push them to the brink of blockage. After 60, the blood vessels in the legs are no longer as flexible as they once were. They are fragile, easily damaged, and sometimes just a little internal pressure, like a slight increase in blood pressure after a salty meal, is enough to make them strain. If combined with high bad cholesterol, the endothelial lining of the blood vessels becomes even harder to recover. Thus, each step becomes heavier, each walking distance becomes shorter, and precious independence is gradually pushed away. However, the positive thing is everything can still be adjusted. A right choice today, like replacing cheddar with low-fat ricotta, sprinkling fresh mozzarella lightly instead of a thick layer of Parmesan, not only saves your blood vessels, but also refreshes your culinary experience. Some simple things are more powerful than we imagine. So, next time you open your refrigerator, try pausing for a few seconds before the cheese drawer. Look at it and ask yourself, is this piece of cheese nourishing my legs, or is it slowly weakening them? The strength of your legs doesn't just come from exercise or supplements. It starts right from how you eat the first piece of cheese today. If this content was helpful, don't forget to share it so more people can know. And please leave a comment. Have you ever changed the type of cheese in your diet? And how did you feel afterward? Let's learn from each other to keep our legs steady, one step at a time.